Hello everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. We have a special treat today for you all. So we have moved studios once again. We are back up in my small recording studio. We're doing things a little bit differently. I wanted to relaunch the podcast as the Josh McKinney podcast. We're saying goodbye to the shit show, and we're moving forward with a little bit of a different format. Instead of several guests together talking, I want to do more one-on-one interviews and conversations with just a myriad of different individuals from all backgrounds and creeds, colors, ethnicities, whatever, what have you. So, again, welcome. We're glad you're here. Joining us today, we have a really good friend of mine. We grew up together. We've known each other literally our entire lives. Grew up within a mile from one another. Please welcome Tristan Thomas to the channel. Tristan, how are you, man?
Man, I'm good. I am blessed, and I'm in good company, man. It's great to see you, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Man, I'm glad that you're here. It's really good to see you too. I've been wanting to, we've been communicating back and forth for a while, trying to get this worked out, and finally we got it here. We got you here. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. What was your upbringing in your childhood like, Tristan?
Well, I was raised in church, of course, Baptist. Very strict parents. My father was a Marine. My mother was very loving and kind of caregiver type, but my father, he was strictly Marine. It was his set of rules, and he expected us to be soldiers instead of kids. And it was hard. I ain't gonna lie. It was a very hard life, even up in the teen years, and then things got, physically abusive because of the way that he was. But other than that, it was, we was in church on Sunday. We was expected to go no matter what. Didn't matter whether you're sick or whatever, sure. You was definitely going to be there Sunday and Wednesday no matter what. But it was a good upbringing. I had a brother, and of course, me and him was always into something constantly. Even at like 12 years old, I got in trouble with the law because me and him and a few other friends, there's a plant that was below the house. Is an abandoned, factories. Even my grandfather worked at it, and we got a vandalism charge because we was all into, stuff, just old cars and these old windows, Anyway, so we stayed into something, but it was a good upbringing. Nobody has the perfect life.
Sure.
There's always going to be flaws, and there's always going to be pains and traumas and certain things that, are going to hurt. No matter what. But overall, I had a good life.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't aware of the abuse. That's that must have been really tough to deal with.
It really was. It never turned to that. It was always verbal abuse for the longest time, and then around about 16, I guess my father started to feel like he was losing control, and he'd lose his temper, and then before you know it, his hands was on us. And for the longest time, I just let him beat me. I wouldn't even fight back, and that went on for years. And finally it reached a head when I was about 21, 22, I think. And blacked out rage, literally didn't even remember it, threw him all the way through a table. And I felt so guilty for hitting him for the first time, nobody wants to say that they hit their father.
Sure.
Because I was always, like I said in church, honor thy father and thy mother. So I felt like I lost control.
Right.
But everybody said, you was in the right. There's nothing right whenever you have to hurt your family.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. At some point, though, you have to stand up for yourself too.
Absolutely.
Whether it's family or not, You at some point have to stand up for yourself.
I felt like I should have been more disciplined, and I was always in martial arts, all the way growing up.
Yep.
Constantly very well trained, and I felt like I lost my discipline and lost my control, and felt like I was defeated.
Sure. So let's see. We graduated high school in 03. What did you do after school?
Well, I actually just started working at Ethan Allen, and I went from Ethan Allen to working with the Park Service for a short time, and ultimately ended up with the railroad, working for CSX Transportation as a railroad conductor, freight conductor.
Yeah. So for people that don't know Ethan Allen, that's a furniture company, furniture manufacturer that is no longer here in our town. But so you worked for the railroad. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you're fine.
Continue on.
You're fine. I worked with them June of 2005 until about February 2013, and worked 7 days a week. Was on the road constantly. I was never home. I made good money. Seen a lot of things. Hit a lot of things. Seen some head-on collision in Virginia.
Oh, wow.
That killed some. I had just come through that part of rail about 10 minutes prior to this event. So I literally missed it by that
wow.
far. Yeah, God was really, he had his hand on me.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah. And the head-on ended up, that killed, I want to say, they had 2 trainees on it. Both of them got fired automatically. It killed the engineer, paralyzed the other conductor, and I think it killed the engineer and the conductor on the opposite train. I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
The engine actually rolled on top of them, so they tried to jump off. They just didn't get far enough.
Wow. I can imagine that being a rough life, never being home, always on the road. I mean, for some people, it may be exactly what they want. It's not very conducive for a family, though, in any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and see, my father, I was following in his footsteps because he worked on the maintenance part, so he was on system gangs. He was never home, ever. Whenever me and Haley was growing up, we would see him, once every now and again. All he was a voice on the phone for the longest time.
Yep. I do remember your father working for the railroad. I do remember that.
Yep, he worked his tail end off, and I know that he was trying to provide for his family. I mean, it does pay rather well, but I mean, you're sacrificing things that...
Yeah. Well, a new creed that I've recently tried to live by, and obviously now that I've accumulated what I do have, I can, and it's hard for some people to live like that, but man, you can always make more money, but you can't make more time.
That is exactly it, man. That no matter how much money you have, it ain't going to buy you not 1 minute.
No, it won't, and there comes a point where that is like super, super important. Your time is a much higher priority than the amount of money you make.
Extremely.
So, we had talked. I'm gonna hard segue here. We had talked a lot about, addiction and stuff, and you struggled some. Can you tell us a little bit that when did you first start to struggle with addiction?
My brother was serving weekends in a jail in Bakersville. The jail was set on fire as a conspiracy to get someone out. Well, after he died, like I said, my father was always gone, so my brother pretty much looked after me, raised me, and he taught me about everything, and looked after me. So whenever he died, I didn't know how to live. That void was so much that it pushed me into things. And me and him, we'd party on the weekends every now and again, like once a month or something. But then after he was gone, all of his friends was calling me, just wondering how I was, and I told them, anything you can get, as much as you can get, please help me. And so after after that May 3rd, 2002, things really took a turn.
So it was Halen's passing that really triggered that that spiral.
Ultimately, led me through, let's see here, about 7 different rehabs.
Wow.
2 terms, 2 long terms in prison.
What did you use?
I had tried almost everything. Everything from regular pain pills. That was basically what I started out on. Then it moved to Krang, and then it moved to heroin, and then it's just, I just bounced from one thing to the other. Sometimes it was like LSD, and then another time it'd be mushrooms, and I would go through these little areas, anything that would block out reality for that time.
Right. I did, so about the same time I went through my foray into drug use. It's about 2003 to 2005, 2006, right before my son was born. And I tried pretty much everything that I could have gotten my hands on to some degree. I never shot anything. I never done any needles, anything with any needles. That was kind of where I drew the line. I really liked, mainly for me, it was really just like weed and psychedelics.
Yeah.
That was my favorite, my drugs of choice were, and I smoked weed like cigarettes, and I mean, just constantly high. And on the weekends I would get shrooms or acid, LSD, and I would trip. And looking back at that, I'm very fortunate that I saw a lot of the people I was hanging out with at that time, and where they were starting to go in terms of their drug habits and what they were starting to use. Heroin wasn't big on the scene. It was just starting to come back. But meth was huge. That time, this county was full of meth. Totally. And I started to see a lot of the people that I was running around with get really heavily involved in meth, and I was still trying to keep some sort of a semblance of a normal life. So I would do the Monday through Friday job, 8 to 4:30, and I was sober throughout that. But as soon as I got off work, I would light up a joint and I'd get high. And then my friends, they would come over, and they'd be geeked out on meth, and I just, for a while it was kind of funny, I thought, because they would say crazy stuff and none of it would make sense, and I'd be like, because I was high too on weed, and I would just be like, this is, I'll never forget, I was sitting in my living room, and dude, he left, and he was, I don't know how long he'd been up, but he was geeked up pretty hard. But anyway, he left his cigarette sitting on the table, and he left, and then he come back in, and he looked at me, and he said, "GD Claw Bears done shit rainbows in my brain," and walked out the door. And I was just like, what? Like that. I mean, I laughed because at the time it was hilarious, but looking back, that was a defining moment for me, because I realized at that point, I was like, he has no idea what he's saying, where he is, or what is going on. Like, he is so far removed from reality. You're really scary whenever you really think of the reality of it. Yeah, it is. And that was a defining moment where I stopped to really think about it. And then later on, my father asked me, he's like, he had said somebody had approached him at the store and was talking, and they were worried about me. He wouldn't tell me who it was, and that's fine. And he was like, "What are y'all doing, Josh? What are you doing?" And I was like, "I mean, acid and stuff like that, And
but that went over well.
And he was like, "You'll cook your brain." And after that, after talking to Dad, I stopped to think, like, after I left and was heading back to my apartment, I was like, what am I doing? Yeah. What am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
I'm working a little crappy job, making just enough money to buy some drugs and pay for my rent and buy some food. Like, this is not a good life. And it was that moment that I decided that I was going to kind of reel back into some control over myself. And I have an extremely addictive personality.
Me too.
So I'm very glad that at that point I made the decision to do so, because that if I had not had that conversation with Dad, or if that conversation with Dad hadn't have meant something to me, if I would have blown that off, I would have probably had a very different life, because I don't think I would have stopped.
I believe that was God intervening, man, and you have a wonderful dad, and I'm praise the Lord that He did.
Yeah, so, I mean, still to this day, like, I struggle with a few addictions. Food. I'm addicted to food, like legit addicted to food. I worked nights for years, man. I've just recently came off of night shift. And, man, I would have something in my mouth from the time I got to work to the time I left. Like, I would be eating something for 12 hours every night. It was ridiculous. There's just, I still, man, I struggle with that. I struggle with spending money. I spend a lot of money. I mean, you can just look around. We're in a studio with about 30 guitars.
Oh, it's beautiful, though. It's a beautiful addiction.
But it's not just guitars, though. I spend money on stuff that I should not. Like, I don't use drugs anymore, but you know, those habits get replaced, I feel, with something else.
Oh man, we are a force of some kind. If you heal one part of it, it's going to go in another direction, one or the other.
Yep, I feel like a lot of times when we replace, like I said, we replace one addiction with another. And see, back in 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh man.
I had stage 3 renal cancer, so my kidney.
I had no idea.
Yeah. They took my right kidney out, half of my left lung, like 19 lymph nodes. I was stage 3, and originally they told me I had like 2 years with treatment. So luckily, it turned out to be a type of cancer that I went from like a 95% mortality rate to like a 80% survival rate with a 50-50 chance of recurrence. And I was like, okay, those odds are way better. I'll take that. Because of the type of cancer it was extremely rare. But that really accelerated like my addictions. I became obsessed with whatever I was doing. It gave me this sense of urgency. I guess because I faced my mortality.
Absolutely.
And I'd never done that, so it gave me this sense of urgency. And whatever it was I was doing, I had to do it now. I bought a house. I bought cars. I was like, I got to do this. I got to do that. You know, all these adult things, I guess, that we're supposed to do in life. These milestones. I decided to hit them all in about a span of a year, which was not good. Really, it wasn't. And I became obsessed with status symbols. My microphone's not working. There we go. I became obsessed with status symbols.
Well, we all want to be, you know, in a label as higher up. You know, everybody wants to feel like they're important, that they are looked up to.
Yeah, I think with me, I just wanted to feel like I'd accomplished something. Because I'd faced, you know, death, and I was like, oh my God, what have I got to show for my life? A wonderful child and a family that I love dearly, but I don't know, something else, just like I became obsessed and addicted to them. And that was another thing I just had very little control over. I mean, dude, buying like $3,000 book bags and crap, like Louis Vuitton, Rolexes. Like, it was ridiculous. It was pretty bad. Looking back in retrospect, it was disgusting.
Man.
The amount of money that I've spent on stupid things like that.
God, but I mean, you've come so far, man, and I mean, facing death head on like that, and you finally grasp the reality of how precious that time that you've got truly is.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could see how even I would have probably done the exact same thing if I had the means to do it. I mean, I buy stupid things all the time, petty things, and dude, I mean, it don't amount to much, and usually it's something I never use. And
Me too. Me too. Me too. On the less funny side of things too, like sex addiction is super real, and that's something I struggle with. Porn addiction for a long time.
Me too.
That's something that's really haunted me for a really long time, and it's a hard. That's a hard one for me to control, and it's really hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
It's because, like I said, man, you just replace one addiction with another.
Absolutely.
I feel like when you deal with one, something else creeps up. And I find with me, if I stay busy, I'm less, like, the busier I am, the less apt I am to fall back into bad habits.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the only way that I can live today. I have to bury myself into something.
Yep.
And as long as my focus and my time is being drawn in to wherever I'm at and focused in, whether it be church, music, or visiting others, and I like helping others. I try my best to reach out and help others, and God actually give me some gifts to be able to read into people and be able to do these kind of things. But as I have to bury myself into that kind of thing, or I literally go in the wrong direction.
Sure.
And nobody will ever get things 100%. I mean, we all try to strive to be better than we were yesterday, but you're not always going to be perfect. You're gonna fall sometimes. You're gonna fall. Sometimes it's gonna hurt. You gotta get back up, dust yourself off, refocus, and keep on going.
Yeah, you do, and when you do fall, it's, for me, it's not so much hurting myself, it's hurting everybody else. That's what I try to avoid. And it's like, I mean, sure, you can remove all temptation from your life to the point where you're not exposed or around anything, but to me, that all, anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is,
I think I follow you. I think you're trying to say it's hard to live inside of this box where we're always going to have something that wants to push the limits. That wants to get outside of the box.
We do.
That everybody normally lives in, what everybody expects you to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're like me, I'm just like, I'm tired of being just normal. I want to either be something spontaneous and do something crazy, risky, or I want to do anything but just normal, because normal is getting boring.
Yeah, and I think a lot of my problem is I get bored.
Yeah.
I get bored, and I try, I'm like, okay, on to the next, on to the next, and I've always had a really high tolerance for risk.
Oh, yeah.
That served me well in many areas, but that's also been a detriment as well, because that can lead to things that you shouldn't be doing, like, I as far as the drug use goes, I don't regret what I did. I actually think there is a lot of benefits from psychedelics. I think there is a lot of course, anything is, can be abused and overused, but there's a lot of research going on right now about using psilocybin and LSD and ketamine to treat depression, anxiety, Dude, there's some studies, and it's got a huge, like an 80 or 90% success rate of people who are alcoholics. They give them a large dose of psilocybin. They are in a controlled environment. They're in a clinic. They're with a psychologist, or they're with a full medical team. And after their experience, they no longer drink.
Wow.
Like it's for alcohol cessation, for smoking cessation. There is a lot of research going into psychedelics in a controlled environment. And I mean, dude, these are big, like Stanford, these big colleges are doing this, and it is crazy the results they're having. And I really think that needs to be the next step in psychiatry and in treating mental illness, because right now we're just like, we'll throw an SSRI at it, throw some Prozac or some Lexapro or something at it, and you'll feel numb for a while and call us in a month and we'll see how you're doing. So you're masking it, you're putting a Band-Aid on it, you're not actually fixing the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, even speaking from experience, I was a diehard alcoholic for about 6 years.
Really? I didn't know that.
I was drinking a fifth and a pint every single day.
Wow.
I was, this is going to sound absolutely insane. I was tormented by a demonic presence that I had told multiple people during this, but where I was drinking so much, nobody believed me until I actually got some photos of this thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was able to prove it to 2 or 3 different people, my mom included. And every single day I was drinking, man. I just constantly. I wasn't doing any drugs at this time. I had left the drugs alone, but I had replaced it. I just, I traded one out for the other. Well, in DTs, I was sent to one of these rehabs. It was a state-maintained rehab. And, of course, the probation officer did not know I was drinking like this yet. I hit it very, very well, extremely well. And I get to this rehab, and I went from drinking that much to cold turkey.
Oh, wow.
And so after 10 days of no sleep and no food, couldn't drink, the DTs finally struck me, and they put me in the hospital, and I was in the intensive care unit for about 2 weeks, and they walked me off of it, dried me out, and after that experience, man, I'm terrified of it.
Yeah, well, that's enough to terrify you of it. Going through withdrawals like that, and wow.
I mean, I've come off of every kind of drug that you can think of, man, and that is the only thing that I ever come off of that I truly thought I was dead. I truly did. I believed it 100% that I wasn't going to make it.
Wow. So this demonic presence you experienced, what was that like?
This thing would show up every single night.
What did it look like?
It had a black robe with a silver belt, and it had burns all over its face. Wow. And just eyes sunk in the back of its head, but its eyes were so black. Now, I had told the girl 2 different girls that I was dating, this went through 2 different relationships. Right. And my mother, for years, I told them exactly what he was wearing. I mean, every single detail, the way his voice sounded, the sulfur smell when he would come, every single thing. And in the middle of a fight, the girl that I was seeing at the time, that was skeptic. She just didn't, she could see the scratches and bite marks manifest in front of her. So she was starting to believe. Well, she snapped a bunch of pictures, and in this monitor, this old computer monitor that was like a Tanya that wasn't plugged up.
Right.
In the reflection of it, you can see me pinned down to the floor with this thing on top of me.
Holy cow.
And I showed this picture to my mother, and after years of her, being in kind of disbelief, she literally was terrified. It took her back 2 or 3 steps.
Wow.
And I kept these pictures in my Bible because I wanted to show people exactly
what I had went through.
Yeah.
Not only was it alcoholism and drug addiction and all the stuff of trying to maintain life, I was dealing with this at the same time, because when my brother died, I pretty much told God that I was done with him. And whenever I turned my back on him, all your spiritual armor comes off, because I wasn't reading my Bible, I wasn't studying. I pretty much give God a big F you and told him I was done with him, and until I went to prison, and he literally come back to me and showed me some amazing things. I mean, I turned my back on him, and I just got into all this dark stuff, and I turned the rage. It transformed me into something else.
So you had a lot of anger from Haley's passing,
to the point that it was blackout rage.
right?
I would get so hot that I would lose control, and in episodes that I wouldn't remember. In Richmond, when I was working for the railroad, I happened up there, put 3 people in the hospital.
Wow.
Thought I was going to serve some serious prison time until the bar owner come out and showed them pictures that I'd been attacked, and it was self-defense. I didn't remember any of it.
Wow.
I was covered in blood, and I knew that it wasn't mine. And nobody was telling me anything, but the cop had his gun drew down on me, and that's the only thing that I remember when I come to that moment.
Wow.
So I transferred out 2 weeks later out of Richmond, and the girl I was with, I was terrified if I ever got hot enough that I would lose control, and I wouldn't know who it would come out on.
Sure.
And like I said, I never laid my hands on a woman, and I've always, really held that very high. And I thought, if I lose control on somebody out on the streets, who's to say that I would not lose control on somebody that actually loves me? Because my morals and my principles went out the window.
Yep.
I mean,
Well, I never was a big drinker. Alcohol was never my thing. And I've always said, I know I'm kind of all over the place, man, I think alcohol is a much more destructive vice than marijuana.
Oh, man. By far.
I put it up there, honestly, with like heroin, fentanyl, meth, and stuff like that. I think it is so destructive.
More people die from alcohol per year than all the other drugs combined. And it's
I don't
illegal
doubt that.
You can check it out statistically. It is proven that it is more lethal than all the drugs.
Gosh, it is so destructive. And I mean, a lot of people, and you're right, it's legal, it's socially accepted too. It's socially accepted.
Exactly.
Dude, there's a huge problem with fentanyl now.
Oh man, it's everywhere.
So bad. It is so bad.
And people dying everywhere.
Yeah, they are.
The cartel, once again, that is all them that's bringing all that mess in.
Yep.
And it's in everything.
It is. They've put it. Well, I've heard anecdotes anyway of people who smoke a joint and it's laced with fentanyl and they wind up dying. That makes me terrified. Even though I don't smoke weed anymore, I don't do any kind of substance anymore. Thankfully, that's one side effect from the cancer is I did quit smoking. I had a pack of Camel Lights. I watered them up and threw them out the window. I littered that night. But after my diagnosis, I wasn't about to smoke another cigarette. But God, fentanyl is so sketchy.
Yep, and now they have come out with something called carfentanil or carfentanil. It is literally about 100 times more potent than even fentanyl is.
Holy,
even 1 grain of this stuff is enough to overdose like 10 men. You can look it up on the internet. Fentanyl. That's, how would you spell it? C-A-R-T. I
don't know. Carfentanil. Okay, I found it.
Yep. Check it out.
Sold under the brand name Wildnil, is a very potent opioid analgesic which uses veterinary medicine to anesthetize large animals such as elephants and rhinoceros.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
1 grain, man, will overdose so many grown men. I mean, just
It's so potent.
Wow, this is like after I scroll down from that, it's just like carfentanil death,
Yeah.
human deaths from carfentanil. Oh my God.
Yeah. People chase to get the bigger buzz, and
Yeah.
now they come out with first it's fentanyl, and that wasn't enough, and they're wanting something even more powerful, and of course their tolerances took them to this level, and this stuff is just unbelievable, lethal as it can be.
Wow. I had no clue. No clue that was even a thing. It's elephant tranquilizer is what it is.
Mhm.
Elephant rhinoceros tranquilizer. My God. Well, maybe I don't have the tolerance for risk I thought I did, because, man, people who do that, I mean, I thought I was being risky, like smoking a little pot and dropping acid. Jeez.
Yeah, because now, you don't know what you're getting if you buy it off the street.
No, you don't.
For a while, they was doing these pressed Xanaxes, and they had fentanyl in them. You didn't know if you was getting just a little bit or if you was getting a heck of a bit. It was just like Russian roulette, man. It could be the one that just, puts you out.
I saw a documentary. I think it was called Gangland or something. It was on, maybe it wasn't Gangland, but it was a documentary on gangs and drug dealers, specifically, drug gangs. Not cartel. These guys were kind of like more along the lines of like blood crip type gang activity, and they were selling fentanyl, and their idea was if one of their customers overdosed, to them that meant they just had good crap, they had good stuff. And I was like, are you for real? Like, you're killing your customer, number one, which from a business standpoint is not very smart. Number two, you're taking life and you're celebrating that because it was strong. Wow. Like,
but I've even seen it myself on the streets. I mean, I've seen kids overdose, and even one of them was a friend, and people could not rush to this person that they asked where it got it from. They could not get there quick enough to get exactly what killed this person, because they thought that was just going to take them to another level. I mean,
well, sure it will. The grave.
Yep.
That's the level it will take you to.
Because everybody's tolerance is different.
Right.
I mean, some people, that's done this stuff for years, their tolerance is going to be out the roof. And then you get a kid that's, done this stuff 2 or 3 times, they think that they're all right. And then that's the one that just kills, People don't know their system that well. They don't know about their tolerance. They don't know about...
No. Well, I mean, people go to school to learn how to dose medicine. And, a lot of it has to do with your body weight, your tolerance, your BMI. So... there's a lot of math that goes into dosing a patient with something like fentanyl or any kind of anesthesia. And I mean, if you just get it and you're like, this looks about right, oh my God,
approach,
right? That looks about right, man. Dude, it's wild. It blows my mind. Now, looking back, like, I look back at what I did, and I'm like, that was retarded. That was so stupid. But now I'm like, what are these people doing?
Man, I'm telling you, it's like I look back and I think I've done it all, and I just keep seeing other stuff, and I'm just like, wow, at least I didn't take it that far.
That's true. Yeah, for real. But then again, I look at my own life and I'm like, well, I'm not doing that, but I'm watching porn when I shouldn't be. I'm eating constantly. I have all these other vices that I can't, that are hard to let go of, that I'm struggling with. And it's like, well, who am I to judge someone who's struggling with, a fentanyl addiction? Because addiction is addiction.
We're all, we've all got these things that literally are our crutch and our crippler. I mean, because honestly, everybody wants to be in their comfort zone.
Sure.
And the comfort zone, unfortunately, is usually the things that kill us.
It seems that way.
But it seems like we're fine where we're at. We think we got everything under control, and it's like this facade that
this is our comfort zone. We're used to this. You know, it's our happy place. But it's always something that has a price at the end of it, and that's literally going to have some kind of negative impact in the long run.
And that's the facade, is that we have it under control.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how under control we think we have it. I mean, anybody that's slightly familiar with any physics concepts knows the concept of entropy. And there is no controlling this. There is no controlling life.
And you know, our devil isn't the enemy. We are our own worst enemy.
Oh, absolutely.
We know our strengths, we know our weaknesses, and I know how to talk me into doing about anything.
Yeah. Me too. You're absolutely right. That's a really good point. I've never considered that, but you're right. I do know how to talk me into doing pretty much anything I want. And it's so funny how we can rationalize things,
justify it.
Yeah. That things that no rational person would be like, yeah, that's a good idea. But we talk ourselves into it because it's what we want.
Absolutely. We do it so quickly and so smoothly. 95% of the time, we don't even realize that we're talking ourselves into it.
Right.
Until it's already said and done, and then we're just like, well, dang, I made a mistake, whatever.
Yep.
Very few people ever think about how they think and why they behave and why they have behaviors the way that they do.
Self introspection is really hard because you have to grapple with the fact or even the idea that you're not as good as you think you are.
Exactly.
And that terrifies, myself included, that terrifies people, because who wants to, look in the mirror and be like, you're a piece of junk, you're a piece of crap. Who wants to look in the mirror? I know a lot of people have self-esteem issues and they may look in the mirror and think that all the time, but to really look in the mirror and be like, highlight your own flaws is really scary to do.
Well, we're all damaged in some way. We're all broken. And I know that there's traumas and hurts and hang-ups that's in everybody's life. I mean, there's things that happened in my childhood that definitely had an effect. I mean, down the road. I mean, it just, everybody's on the same page. Everybody just has different ones, but I mean, we have those things. But we also have the spiritual gifts that God has given us that are supposed, if we was working as the body of Christ, these things would be working themselves out.
It's amazing what we humans get ourselves into. It really is. And I don't know, I've been grappling with the idea recently of whether we actually have free will or we don't have free will. I'm kind of, I guess, agnostic on that point. I don't really know where I stand on that, if we in fact do have free will or not.
Well, I believe that the all-knowing God, that he already knows the outcome, but I believe that he gives us free will as a choice, because ultimately it's going to be our choice whether we come to find him or not. And that is a choice in itself, because we know that if we don't seek out a relationship, because the goal ain't to get to heaven. Everybody thinks that the goal is to get to heaven, to be on the other side and walk the golden streets. No, that's just the bonus. The goal is to finally face to face with the Lord and Savior that conquered hell and the grave, so you can have a relationship with him for eternity, because you're coming back to the earth. God's going to destroy all this mess with the devil himself and everything else, but he's building a new heaven and a new earth, and we're coming back. So it's not about heaven. Now, I'm sure heaven's beautiful and it's great, but it's about the one that has done so many things. See, I used to have such an abstract view of things, and to look back, I was blind, completely blind.
We've all been there, I believe.
Just a small little run on what happened in prison. Got there, like I said, I turned my back on God. I knew when I landed in prison that I probably wasn't going to make it out. I'd already accepted this fact. I'd already prepared everything, had made sure I had made my amends to my family and the ones that I had hurt, and I left on a good note that if something happened and I didn't make it out, that they knew that I loved them very, very much. And so I get in there, and first thing they do is strip you down, make you walk about 100 yards completely naked after you have literally bent over, spread your butt cheeks and everything else. And all this, I get to my bed. I'm halfway dressed. I'm hitting my knees. And I said, if you're really up there and you care anything about me, I said, I'm listening. You're going to have to prove some stuff to me, though. I said, because right now, I feel like if you do exist, then you just absolutely hate me, and you take the greatest things out of my life. And so I get back up off my knees, and I no more stood up. I heard, "Hey, white boy," and I thought, this is it. I've already pissed somebody off. This is how it's going to go down, dead right here. Didn't even make it one day.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this guy walks up, and he asked me who I am, why I'm in there, and I said, my name's Tristan. I got drug trafficking and got some other charges on top of that, conspiracy, maintaining a dwelling, and
the stack.
Yep. And one thing you're not supposed to do in prison, you're not supposed to ask somebody, what their charges are.
Right.
It's kind of just like a prison code, or respect thing that you just don't. Well, I didn't care. I'm an open book. So I told this guy, and he said, well, I already knew who you were. I already knew why you was in here. And he said, my name is E. And he said, and I'm the kingpin here. And he said, I've never really looked out for anybody. He said, but you won't have no problems out of nobody here. He said, you're under my care. He said, I don't know. I just get a good feeling about you, man.
Wow.
And it was strange. Then the guy beside him, turned out both of them was ex-special forces.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and so the whole time that I was there, I didn't have any problem. Well, I had walked outside after having this conversation with this guy, and me and him, we just hit off, just really good friends. And I went outside, and this guy walks up, completely covered tattoos, even on his face. And he looked at me and he said, God loves you, man. Everything's going to be all right, dude. Just know he loves you. He's there. And I thought, that's random. Somebody just walked up and said something like that. I went to go find this guy. I looked in all 4 dorms, tried to track this guy down, give a description of everything. This guy did not exist.
Holy cow.
He was never there.
Wow.
He was never there. So every time that I was transferred to a different prison, the same story played out. God would send somebody that was over top of the prison. And I never had not one bit of trouble. I've seen people be raped. I've seen people be stabbed. I've seen people be beat absolutely half to death in all this chaos. But nobody ever gave me any trouble that time that I was in prison. I mean, this was the first go around, of course.
Right.
But man, whenever I started studying and really digging into the Bible and really giving things a chance, because I started seeing that he was trying, and he had got my attention. So I ended up being kind of like the prison minister, I guess you could say, like a chaplain, more or less. I was a peer counselor. I helped multiple people, with their issues, basically. God had given me some spiritual gifts, gift of interpretation, foresight's here, gift of knowledge, and gift of wisdom, the gift of illumination, and the gift of enlightenment. And basically, these gifts allow me to read into the damage that people have in their lives if God puts it on me. And I can see what's holding them back, basically, if God allows it. But the bad part about this is that sometimes you put yourself on the back burner.
Sure.
But
Sure.
it was a good thing in prison though, and it allowed me to help some people. So anyway, whenever I was about to get out, and I of course at the time I'd never played a guitar in my life and didn't know any chords whatsoever, but God told me to pick it up and I'll set it down.
Mm-hmm.
And so, long story short, within about the last 3 months, I'd self-taught myself how to play guitar.
That's awesome.
And I've never had not one lesson. Nobody showed me anything.
Mm-hmm.
He's give me an ear to hear it. So everything that I play is to him. Well, in this the prison that I ended up on to do the last little bit of time,
Mm-hmm.
I thought, heck, I ain't gonna know anybody here, no friends whatsoever. I get off the bus, everybody's saying, "Hey, Tristan." I was like, "Holy crap." Man, I knew like everybody.
Wow.
Man, I did. I had friends all over the place in this place. Even the guards and the inmates, and this was a prison at the time, didn't even have a gate around it.
Wow.
Buncombe County Correctional, and
Yeah.
long since then they've put one around it, but
Sure.
at the time they didn't have one. I worked on
Wow.
DOT, had a job, it just worked out perfect.
Wow.
The last 3 days, I asked God, I said, I know you're wanting me to do something. I've tried to help everybody I can help. I've tried to do all the right things that I can do. I said, so what's next? Because right now I'm titled as a felon, and I know that ain't going to get me very far.
That makes it so hard, man.
Extremely.
And I've got a lot to say about that.
Extremely.
I really do.
And people, that label, people look at me with disgust. And of course, jobs, the people look at that as you're just an outcast.
Yep.
And cops, they look at you like you're not any different. You're always going to be a piece of dirt.
You're guilty until you're proven innocent.
Yep.
Which I think that's a whole nother conversation about cops there. But
Absolutely.
I used to be back the blue. I really did. And anymore,
Man.
You know what did it for me? It's COVID.
Oh, yeah.
COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I saw just following orders. Just following orders. Mm-hmm. Yep, just following orders. But anyway, that's incredibly fascinating, Tristan. Like I mean, I know it's been a long time since we've talked, and I had no idea any of this, had went down. And that's one of the reasons I reached out to you, because I wanted to catch up with you too, and just you find out what you've been up to since school. And man, that's
Yep. So I got all these postcards in the mail after I'd asked God what to do to churches I didn't know anybody that I went to, and everybody was asking me about my testimony. And so I went to speaking at these churches and playing the songs that God had wrote in front of all these people in these ministries. And this went on throughout a lot of churches in western North Carolina and a couple in Tennessee. And ultimately, in 2019 of November, God had called me to preach, and honestly, I told him he had the wrong guy, and I tried to run. Tried to run from it because I knew I was not worthy of it, and I knew that I couldn't carry that burden. I thought,
it is a burden to carry. It is. I mean, I grew up a preacher's kid.
Yeah, but I did. I preached for a while, and I was under Bruce Cannon was the one I was doing my pastoral stuff, my training and all, and all the studying with, and he took me right under his shoulder. Well, and I'm in the midst of all this. Devil he knew how to line things up, and of course he threw it right there, and me and my father was fighting at that day, so I was at a weak point, and man, I give in to temptation. Well, in that relapse, I felt unworthy and completely just destroyed and defeated, and I told Bruce, I said, I can't do it. I've got to step off the pulpit. I cannot step in front of these people after making this mistake. I just don't look at myself the same.
I understand.
And he's still giving me wisdom, and we still talk, and I still go to celebrate recovery and do a lot of good things. But I know that God's going to bring me back to that, because he won't leave me alone about
Right.
it. I mean, he even gave me a vision about the storm that's happening in California. 3 weeks ago, he'd give me a vision about this storm. I even put it on TikTok of what it was going to look like, the devastation it was going to cause, everything. And here it is, destroying everything. Wow. And I showed it to my wife. She said, "That's exactly like you said." You said it. I said, "He'd give me that," and he gives me little tidbits like that, but he never gives me the full picture. You know, it's kind of like throw you a bunch of puzzle pieces in here, you put them together.
Right. Wow, that's incredible.
But you know, I've made progress. But I mean, to whenever I look at myself, I don't see all that great stuff.
Well, you know, it's like you messaged me earlier and you were like, "Man, I still struggle. I still have temptations and cravings. You know, are you sure you want to talk to me?" And that I'm like, that makes me want to talk to you even more, because that's real life, man. This is real life. That's what life is. Life is a struggle.
Always.
To paraphrase Jordan Peterson again, to live is to suffer. And the meaning of life, so far as I can tell, is to live in to have a mode of being that is so meaningful that it makes the fact that life is suffering irrelevant.
Absolutely. I even wrote a song that it's called "This Is How Suffering Goes," and it's basically, the song's all about that. I mean, you can go in BandLab and check out all my stuff.
I will.
It's under This Tris. Is what my name is on it.
Oh yeah, plug your social media stuff. Where can we find you on? We're not done, by the way. We still got a little bit to go, but where can they find you on?
I'm on TikTok as of course, Tristan Thomas 8857. That's my TikTok. And let's see here, on Facebook, Tristan Kane Thomas. And on BandLab, it's this THIS Tris, TRIS, and it has a lot of my work and most of the songs that I've kind of played around with and edited, and I finally got the published CD out. And
awesome.
The songs that's on there's a couple that was wrote in prison. There's one the CD's name is Thorn Bearing, because addiction is the thorn in my flesh.
Right.
But yeah, check out How Suffering Goes.
Okay.
Because all this stuff is what he wrote. I didn't write any of this, and he literally dumped it in my lap in about 30 seconds, every single song.
Wow.
And it come out, and I don't know how in the world it all happened, but it all come out, and all the stuff, and even to hear it on the opposite end, I can feel that, feel the impact of it, and I think that you will too.
Yeah, I'll absolutely check it out. And everybody out there, check out his stuff. Man, that's... Wow. My mind is blown, Tristan.
Man,
my mind is blown.
We serve a good God, and he has brought me a long way. And
you have come a long way, man. You really have. I'm really proud of you. I ran into you. It's been many, many, many years ago. I ran into you in Stamey's one day, and I don't know if you remember or not, but I could tell, then I think you were using, and I was like, man, I really, really hope that he finds his way out of this, and I am just so glad that you did.
I was hell bent on destruction.
So glad that you did.
I mean, I tried to take myself out and everything. I tried to overdose myself numerous times. I tried to offer myself in so many different ways, and God wasn't having it.
Yeah. Not done. You're not done here, man.
Yeah, that's it. Whenever he's got a purpose for your life, God will not let you die until you serve that purpose. Until he says, okay, you can die now. You cannot die. That doesn't mean that you're invincible and go and test the limits.
Right, yeah, no, don't test the limits on that.
It means that God has I believe everybody has a calling for their life, and I believe that everybody has a purpose. Everybody also has a passion, and most of these things run together in what they call the triangle of triad. And basically, your passion, like mine is music, usually your passion's going to run right pretty close to your calling. And it'll be so close, and you'll find your purpose. Because everybody wants to find their purpose in life of why they're here.
Yep. That's a huge question a lot of people want an answer to, and they seek it in many different directions. Tristan, thank you so much for doing this,
it's
man.
Been such an honor and pleasure, man.
I've enjoyed every second of it. You will be back for sure.
Oh man, I would love to.
We'll do this often. Everybody, like the video, leave a comment down below. Tell us about your battles with addiction, with your battles with mental health, whatever they may be, if you want to, or if you know someone who has struggled with these issues. If you are currently struggling with addiction, a mental health crisis, or any kind of thoughts of harming yourself or whatever it may be, I will link down below
reach out to somebody.
Reach out to somebody. I will link down below some numbers that you can call, that you can get help and talk to somebody. Please
Yes,
get help if you need it. Reach out to me, reach out to anybody.
Anybody.
Take care of yourself. Until next time, peace out.